Nice to have you with us on a Saturday morning at the midway point of the RBC Canadian Open. We got a couple other leaderboards to break down. Charlie's guy, Angel Cabrera, is 6 shots back going into the weekend at the American Family Insurance alongside the great Ricardo Gonzalez. And we will do a little preview for the U.S. Open this week. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour presented by Insperity HR that makes a difference. Charlie, how we doing this morning?
Well, I'm dragging a little.
Yeah. You've had a long week,
Long week.
you know. Do you want to share anything with the audience about
Yeah.
why it's been weak? Well, a little,
Well, my wife is a little under the weather. She had a little operation at the great MD Anderson Hospital.
How is Miss
It's
Epps?
just incredible, and it's all worked out well. The doctor is just amazing. A Korean doctor that uh, performed the operation, and she's very happy with how it turned out. What they didn't find and what they did find, and but it's a great city we have in Houston, and the Houston Medical Center, starting with the MD Anderson and Methodist and St. Luke's, and it's good. They perform miracles.
Charlie, you're a multiple time cancer survivor yourself.
Yeah. How about that? So my good old doctor that retired, Dr. Renner from Kelsey Siebo, he
Yeah.
took good care of me. So yeah, we're ready to go. We're gonna continue with the summer and get Judy back to
Yeah.
on her feet.
Our best worst wishes, I know, are
Thank you.
everyone with
Thank you.
with Judy Epps. Just the best. I mean,
Thank you.
the first lady as far as the world of golf in Texas is concerned. Charlie, what about Cabrera? He is, he's coming off winning the first two senior majors of the year. He is back in contention alongside his good friend Ricardo Gonzalez at the AmFam. You were with him. Were you with him at this tournament last year? It was around this time you visited him with the set of pin clubs?
No, that's when I took clubs to him, from a gift from Carson Solheim
Wow.
after he was let out of prison, and he continued his golf game and his life, and he's done very very well since then. And his first round of golf after being not playing for 2.5 years was 8 under par. So his golf game has not left him. And he's working hard, and I'm really happy for him.
Well, next week the U.S. Open goes to Oakmont, and the 2007 U.S. Open was one of the greatest performances of all time, displayed by Angel Cabrera. Won his first of two majors. I've been watching some U.S. Open previews this week, and really getting juiced up about the third major of the year next week. And I've noticed that the historians and the collectors and all these other people who really have never picked up a golf club in their life, want to erase Cabrera from the history of the U.S. Open and not acknowledge his win there at Oakmont. But and I think after winning the first two senior majors of the year, he should have a place in this tournament. I know it's been more than 10 years and the exemption runs out, but I mean, can you just talk about, more the fact that he doesn't really even have an interest in coming back to the regular major championships?
Well, it's unfortunate. People choose to report what they want to report, not what history tells us. And in 2007, a poor kid from South America uh, came into Oakmont, and on Sunday he walked down the 72nd hole, which was a par four. He hit one of the greatest 358-yard drives and beat Tiger Woods. Now, what better story is there in golf than that?
Yeah.
I mean, the poor, it doesn't, golf doesn't matter what your status is. It just depends on the inner fight you have within you, and golf is great for that. From Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Bobby Jones, and Oakmont is one of the classic golf courses that we have. It was built for this purpose, for championship golf, and it's on a piece of property that is magnificent, and it's rolling hills. They did, and a lot of the courses have done this. Um, it seems that every golf committee wants to plant trees and all that, but you can't grow good grass on underneath trees. So Oakmont, they cut down 10,000 trees that have been planted over the history of that golf course, and it looks like a links golf course, which is it intended to be, and it's magnificent.
Cabrera was not even in the U.S. Open in 2007, about a month before. Talk about his preparation leading into that tournament.
Well, he was over. He was in the United States. He started, in March. We started our working together, and he played in the Players Championship, and it didn't make the cut. And then he went over to Europe, and he was playing in the match play over there. And then because of his status in the world ranking, he got one of the last exemptions, so he had to fly over to Pittsburgh uh, and arrive there on Sunday, and really didn't have too much preparation for the U.S. Open. Didn't play the golf course, and there's many reasons for that. The U.S. Open has 156 players that exempt from all over the world, but when that many people have a practice round, it's impossible. It's like a freeway at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There's so many cars for not that much room,
How
and
long are you waiting on every shot in a typical
well,
U.S. Open practice
five
round?
10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, and so what most of the players do, they play 9 holes on Monday, 9 holes on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you try to chip and pitch and uh, just wait for the championship day on Thursday.
Yeah, incredible story. We'll get to some more on the U.S. Open a little bit later on, what to expect there next week. Right now, as far as the PGA Tour is concerned, we are in week 23 at the RBC Canadian Open, and Cameron Champ goes into the third round with a 2-shot lead at 12 under. Charlie, Cameron Champ, we got to talk to him after the round yesterday. This is a 3-time PGA Tour winner.
Right.
Went to school up the road from us at Texas A&M. Really had an outstanding start to his career. He started to battle a couple things mentally. Said he got to a point last year and the year before where he really did not want to be on the golf course. And he got the help he needed. He has worked through it. He is splitting time right now between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour. We got a glimpse of him at the Byron Nelson a couple weeks ago. Not a couple weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago now. He was in contention in that golf tournament at the midway point, ended up finishing 15th, and Scheffler rolled over the whole field that week. Interesting to see a guy like Cam Champ back in the mix.
Well, I know one thing. He did lose his mentor, his grandfather, a couple years ago. When he won in California, it was quite a story, and he was, as you say, an Aggie, still is an Aggie, but his mentor, his grandfather, passed away, and I think that has a lot to do sometimes with people that have that relationship with their parents,
Yeah.
with their grandparents, with their, you know, so he's fought back, and I'm happy for him.
Charlie, talk about when Tiger lost Earl, what that was like.
Well, he was, Tiger was raised by his father, who was a military person that really showed him the way, but was a disciplinarian, and turned him into be one of the greatest athletes. And I consider a Tiger an athlete. The way he works out, the way he prepared his body. He should have had a chauffeur.
Yeah. A
That's
driver would have helped over the
yeah,
years.
that. But so all the guys on tour these days,
Yeah.
you look at Rory, you look at my grandson, typical. He's a college golfer, and the golf programs and at universities have great physical fitness programs, and it's a growing sport.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch the three individuals who are freshly removed from PGA Tour U. They made their pro starts this week. Gordon Sargent, Luke Clanton, and David Ford.
Yep.
David Ford actually made his debut last week in Fort Worth, but all three of these guys on the younger side, fresh out of college, physically they are stallions, Charlie. The speed they're creating,
Yep.
their feel of the golf courses, still some nerves there. And I mean, the leader's 12 under through 2 rounds. So welcome to the show.
Yep.
The three of those guys missed the cut, but big futures ahead. I know we're all fired up to watch Charlie Wiley here over the next couple of years
Yes.
grow and develop into a great professional. We're all looking forward to seeing that. Talking about mentors and you lost Larry Dornish here over the last couple of years. I mean, you have lost a fair amount of people that meant a whole lot to you. Who was a mentor of yours that was really tough to let go at the end of their life?
Well, that's an interesting question. Dick Harmon played a big role in my life when he appeared here in Houston, and he became the golf pro at River Oaks, and I was at Houston Country Club, and Dick's father was a Masters champion, and I learned a lot from Dick, and then he introduced me to a lot of tour people. I didn't have the contacts that Dick did, and his brother Butch became, the all-time great teacher. But Bob Rotella, and then one of the reasons I left Houston Country Club for a couple of reasons, and one, I wanted to become a better teacher, and so I went to work for Golf Digest. They offered me a position within their staff, and that was really a big changer in my teaching career slash playing career, because I spent a lot more time with Bob Rotella, with with Mark Wood, with Jim Flick, and all these guys that are immersed in golf. And that's, the professionals today are immersed in golf. We got the PGA of America that has over 30,000 members, that these gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, really are studying the game from every aspect, from merchandising, from handicaps, from psychologically preparing themselves to be able to help junior golfers. So it's an interesting moment in golf.
When you left Houston Country Club to go further develop your teaching skills, was that a massive risk at the time? And is this a risk that you would recommend to young professionals now?
Well, it really, sure, it was a risk. There's no doubt about it, but it was something that my wife and I explained to her what the challenges were going to be, and we both agreed that was good for my career, and for me personally. Being a golf professional at a country club is quite a job. I mean, it might, people say, "Oh, you're going to work at a country club." No, you're handling, Houston Country Club, 3,000 members,
Uh,
uh, husbands and wives and kids, and there's a lot of stress to manage and keep all those people happy.
it's not just the director of fun, Charlie.
That's
A
right.
lot more going on. You're the man. I love being with you here every Saturday morning. We got to take a quick break. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour presented by Insperity HR that makes a difference.
You're listening to the Charlie Epps Golf Hour on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Powered by Insperity.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Will Doctor and the golf doctor himself, Charlie Epps.
Texas A&M alum Cameron Champ is your leader at the halfway point at the RBC Canadian Open 62-66. Talked a lot yesterday about how he's been working very hard at, number one, his putting, which has made major improvements here over the last year. Number two, we know Cameron Champ is an amazing driver of the golf ball. We know he's long, but he said 6-iron and below have really been his challenge here over the last several years, narrowing in on those shorter irons, Charlie. And he said that when he's not playing well, he's trying to hit every short iron perfect. He's trying to go right at the pin. Everything needs to be perfect. But when he's out there playing shots, he feels like he's striking the ball a lot better this in general. And in specific this week, Champ said with the softer conditions at TPC Toronto, he's just putting the ball a little bit back in his stance, embracing the fact he's a little steeper on and he's going to take big divots and just kind of hitting these punch cuts that are really working out nicely for him, Charlie.
When he came onto the scene, when he became, even, we didn't know much about him when he was playing golf at Texas A&M, but his teacher was a little radical, and his swing shape was really not, I didn't think, conducive to be a professional golfer. And it eventually caught up to him. The shape of your swing is so important for every club in the bag, but especially for your short irons. And so he was really out of playing, and now it sounds, he's back in the saddle, you might say, and a shorter swing, more efficient swing is going to make him the golfer that he will, could be.
I think as a 3-time PGA Tour winner, he's got a great chance to close this tournament out. This is not just your run-of-the-mill PGA Tour player who is in the lead right now. This is a 3-time PGA Tour winner. He's got great players behind him. Nick Taylor, who won this championship 2 years ago, he's in a tie for third at 9 under. PGA Tour winner Jake Knapp is in a tie for 7th at 8 under. Shane Lowry and Sam Burns also in a share of 7th place. So a lot of work to do for Champ going into the weekend. Charlie, frankly, I think there's a lot of fans. I've talked to a couple of my friends up in Canada who have been there this week. Taylor Beckstead, who is a former teammate of mine at Texas Wesleyan, he's up in Canada. Jacob Lehman, who I went to IMG with and is now playing mini tour golf in Canada. What makes this week so frustrating for Canadian Open fans is how far they have fallen in terms of venue quality, Charlie. The Canadian Open has been played at some great golf courses over the years, absolute gems, courses that have carried character, identity, and tested the world's best. I mean, St. George, where Mo Norman cut his teeth, Glen Abbey, where Tiger hit that shot in 2000. Can you just talk about, you've been around, you've seen the TPC system work itself out. Can you talk about the decision that this tournament might have had to make to now permanently move this course to TPC Toronto, which is now called the home of Canadian golf?
Well, the golfing world is expecting a lot from major championships, and to play golf in Canada it's a euphoria. I mean, they play a lot of golf and they understand the game, and in the history of their golfing. Uh, their history is really rich in great golf courses. So it's just kind of like the United States when Dean Beeman bought a swamp and made the TPC.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a genius idea. I mean,
now they didn't like it at first, though, did they?
No, it was what is this all about? Yeah. So this golf course is new on the /Rhoda. The British Open has the 10 to 12 most famous golf courses in the Great Britain and Ireland. So they're introducing something new that I think will eventually catch up to what we expect it should be. It's just like Oakmont, where the U.S. Open is today, is, in Irwin Hills. There's no comparison between those two courses.
Yeah.
Oakmont and Wingfoot, and we've got 20 courses that should have the U.S. Open every year, and not these new ones. Remember when they went up to Washington?
Yeah,
Seattle,
Chambers Bay.
Chambers Bay. That was a unfortunate experiment.
Yeah.
But they want to have the golf course up in that part of the world, and it was, as far as spectators were concerned, it was successful.
Yeah.
But the golfing community, the purists, didn't like it.
No, they didn't. And I think Canada feels the same way about this championship this week. When you look at some of these golf courses over the years, I mean, St. George, the Stanley Thompson design, Glen Abbey, which is probably the most iconic modern era host of this golf tournament. Hamilton Golf and Country Club, that was a great venue in 2019 when Rory won in dominant fashion. Royal Montreal, the oldest club in North America, hosted President's Cups and several Canadian Opens. It's, you don't get more pedigree than Royal Montreal. And Shaughnessy, my personal favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't been since 2011, Charlie, but I mean, guys feared that finish there at that golf course, there in the tree lines.
But the fact of the matter is to get a major championship, it's got to be planned out 10 years in advance. So it doesn't come every year. So it is what it is.
100%, Charlie. We move on to the Rory McIlroy storyline. Rory missed the cut this week. He was one of the, he was the pre-tournament favorite. Not, just because he is the Grand Slam champion, but has also dominated in Canada over the years. And after, blowing off the media at the PGA Championship, Rory addressed it head on this week before the week started at the RBC Canadian Open.
PGA was a bit of a weird week. I didn't play well. I didn't play well the first day, so I wanted to go practice. So that was fine. Second day, we finished late. I wanted to go back and see Poppy before she went to bed. The driver news broke. I didn't really want to speak on that. Saturday, I was supposed to tee off at 8:20 in the morning. I didn't tee off until almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Another late finish. Was just tired, wanted to go home. And then Sunday, I just wanted to get on the plane and go back to Florida. So, and also like the driver stuff, I was a little off because I knew that Scotty's driver had failed on Monday, but my name was the one that was leaked. It was supposed to stay confidential. 2 members of the media were the ones that leaked it. So why, I didn't want to get up there and say something that I regretted either, because there's a lot of people that I'm trying to protect Scotty. I don't want to mention his name. I'm trying to protect TaylorMade. I'm trying to protect the USGA, PGA of America, myself. So I just didn't want to get up there and say something that I regretted at the time. And with Scotty stuff, like that's not my information to share. I knew that had happened, but that's not on me to share that. And I felt, that process is supposed to be kept confidential, and it wasn't for whatever reason. And that's why I was pretty annoyed at that.
I get Rory's frustration over, the way the driver test, the failed driver test was handled. But Charlie, your thoughts overall on what Rory said?
Well, it's you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're going to have to, own up to your responsibilities to the game. I mean, the game does a lot for you as an individual. He is the latest person to win the Grand Slam.
It's a big deal.
It's
6th ever. First in our lifetime.
It's a big deal. And then after it's done, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And now he's got to carry on with his professional life, and he's got some other problems going on, and we the media have a tendency to be too nosy.
Yep.
And we bring up all his bad stuff that he's done, but he's done so much good stuff. So we'll get through this dark side of what's going on with Rory.
Absolutely. I just thought there might be a little more celebration at the PGA Championship and at some of these events after winning the Grand Slam. But you brought up a great point before the show. You mentioned David Duval. Sometimes you reach the hill and it's not everything that you think it is.
Right, exactly right. And so now it's such a big buildup, and we all talk about it, and then
Were there any other players back in the day that you saw that happen to? They won, and then it was kind of like, what's next?
oh, Johnny Miller was a interesting case where he really made it to the big time in
Early.
early, and then all of a sudden he realized it's going to take too much time away from him and his family and his religion, and so he retired early. um,
How about that? 63 from Johnny Miller and 73 at Oakmont.
that was pretty good. Really didn't realize how good it was.
But that was around, his peak time early on. He won every tournament on the California swing.
Yeah.
And did he go to broadcast pretty quick in his career?
No, that kind of happened by mistake. But his wife said, Johnny asked her, should I get into broadcasting? And he had been invited to go to work for NBC, and she said, well, a paycheck would be nice.
And he did a great job for all those years. We're still waiting for
His personality was one of those Howard Cosell type
Yeah.
personality, and he was true to the word, and he, as a player, he was a little more critical than the Dave Maras of the world were, and he put a different light on a lot of situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Rory, while he did hide from the media at the PGA, he did not hide on Friday after a stunning 78 that knocked him out of contention. Rory did speak to the media regarding the struggle to hit fairways, even after switching from the QI10 to the QI35. He was Rory on the driver after yesterday's round.
Does today concern you, or do you just wipe the slate clean and you're fine?
Yeah, of course it concerns me. You don't want to shoot high scores like the one I did today. Still, I felt like I came here obviously with a new driver, thinking that, that sort of was going to, be good and solve some of the problems off the tee, but it didn't. So, and obviously going to Oakmont next week, what you need to do more than anything else there is hit fairways. So, still sort of searching for the sort of missing piece off the tee. And obviously for me, when I get that part of the game clicking, then everything falls into place for me. But right now that isn't. And, that's a concern going into next week. Yeah. So I went back to a 44-inch driver this week to try to get something that was a little more in control and could try to get something a bit more in play. But if I'm going to miss fairways, I'd rather have the ball speed and miss the fairway than not. So I was saying to Harry going down the last, like, this is obviously the second time this year I've tried the new version, and it hasn't quite worked out for me. So, I'd say I'll be testing quite a few drivers over the weekend. Thank you.
Charlie, we got to take a quick break here in a second, but real quick, and we're going to get to some teaching on the other side. We're talking about one of the best drivers of all time, and Rory McIlroy. Are his problems right now, if you had to guess, mechanical or mental over the driver?
Well, I think they've morphed into everything. I mean, his distractions off the golf course with his wife, and that might be make more damage.
Yeah.
Than is he divorced? Is he not divorced? He flies all the way back home without her. That's one scenario. And of course, the golf courses it's are not conducive to his style of play.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jack's place. Yeah.
Exactly right. I mean, the rough was caught up with the players.
Yeah.
The
Calf
rough
high.
Yeah. So I think he'll work out of it. I hope he works out of it. But there's a lot of guys chasing him, and he's got one important thing happening this year is the Open Championship is going to Ireland to his home golf course.
Yeah.
And the last time he started off with an 8 on the first hole and missed the cut.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing. Luckily, Laurie won. So it's catch 22. It's everything and anything can happen. Whether your wife says the wrong thing at the wrong time and you get upset and you take it to the first tee and you hit a ball, 40 yards out of the fairway, and now you're starting with uh, the 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 momentum is not
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and that's all about athletics. I mean, and it's everything, baseball, football. There's pressure. Look what's happened in the NBA. It's turned out to be a circus. They're finally getting, you know, and now they're fighting between the players. That's
Yeah, no, they're making a lot of money. Maybe some egos swinging. Our producer AJ behind the ones and twos, he's got a good feel of it. He covers the Houston Rockets, does a great job. We'll get to him here in a little bit, but we got to take a quick break. Charlie, great work there. We'll get to your questions on the other side. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hours by Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Back after this.
The Charlie Epps Golf Hour, powered by Insperity, continues
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Will Doctor and Charlie Epps.
You can get your questions in for Charlie at ESPN 975 on X. Here's John. Charlie, we hear the phrase use the ground a lot these days. What does that actually mean, and how can weekend golfers apply it without getting overly technical?
If you've ever gone to a track meet and watched the high jumpers, where they have their, these guys are 6'5" and weigh 200 pounds or 180 pounds, and they can propel their body straight up and over the bar. That's ground force.
Yeah.
They're as they run into the pit, if you will, and they plant their foot and they push down to go up. Well, in golf, we can do the same thing, and we study the golf swing, and it's kind of pretend that there's two scales under your feet, one on each foot, and as you swing the club back, your weight shift goes from the left to the right, and for a good reason. So you want to get more weight behind the ball, and you're pressing the foot down into the ground, and that way you don't sway back. You're just preparing to get ready to be in a hitting position to explode at impact. So you've got more weight behind the ball and the backswing, and then as you start your swing, you're taking that weight back to the left foot. You're pressing down into the ground so that as the club approaches the ball, you press down and you come up. You come up into a powerful position. It's just like when they explode to go up over the bar.
Yeah.
You explode into the ball, and then you push off that right foot. You push your body weight forward and around, just kind of like Nolan Ryan would do using the pitcher's mound. He's using ground force, and he's using the mound as a brace to push against. There's action and reaction in that mode of exercise, you might say, of a skill, whether you're starting your 100 degrees, 100 yard dash, or you're starting your golf swing, you're going to use the ground.
Yeah. I think of Tom Seaver pushing off that rubber with his
Oh,
back knee on the ground, but a little more relevant. Sometimes we get a glimpse of Scotty Scheffler's training programs.
Yeah.
And he's doing box jumps, throwing the medicine ball while jumping. This is all what that's for, isn't it? Is that right, Charlie?
He's preparing his body because he's going to ask it to perform, and it's got to be strong and have the strength to last, 100 holes a year. I mean, 1,000 holes a year. I mean, you just, the athletes today, whether you're the basketball player, you look at how they jump so high is because they press down to go up.
Yeah. AJ, how about some of that training they're doing in basketball to get off the ground? A lot of box jumps. What's the routine there? What do you see with Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet? What are those guys doing?
Yeah, like a lot of stuff, like box jumping, and they have this new system in the past 5 to 10 years called the Vertimax. That's how a lot of these kids started working on their hops to build more athleticism and stuff like that. And
is that where you have the bands attached to your bell loops and you're trying to elevate off that?
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Crazy.
Once again, that's AJ behind the ones and twos. Go follow him. What are your social handles, AJ?
Just at Swaggy Russ.
Swaggy Russ on Instagram.
And
Twitter. There's Cabrera. We got a question for you on Cabrera. This comes from Jason. Angel Cabrera had a beautiful rhythm and tempo. How can golfers find their own tempo? Are there any drills you like for that?
Practice in slow motion. You got each movement in golf, or if dancing, you got to learn in slow motion, and then all of a sudden, then you can understand what you want you've got to tell your body what you want it to do, and you can't do it at full speed. It's a slow motion drill in practice, and I used to have Cabrera practice. I want you to, it's full swing, half speed. Better said, full swing, half speed. And you want to go half speed so that you're aware of what your knees are doing, what your hips are doing, where your right shoulder is. And that's why you have video. Why do you have video that you run in slow motion? So you can see what the body's doing and what it's not doing.
No, incredible stuff there. Cabrera, how about 3 albatrosses this year?
How about that?
3.
3.
And
That's it's
I mean, just to put this into perspective for people, I mean, most people go their whole lives without an albatross. Even players who are playing at the top level. That's a very impressive thing to do, Charlie.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've yet to have one.
Yeah, I don't have one either. We got to take a quick break. Before we get out of this segment, Charlie, I keep talking about, one of my favorite young players on the Corn Ferry Tour, Johnny Kiefer. He unfortunately missed the cut this week at the RBC Canadian Open. He qualified for the U.S. Open next week, so he will be at Oakmont. When you see Johnny, you'll see across his hat Insperity, an HR company that is making a difference. Charlie, talk a little bit more about that.
Well, you can't say enough about the success of Insperity, the company that 1986. Couple gentlemen that had an idea, and it had to do with HR, helping small companies do their business and be a resource of positive influence. And Insperities definitely is that. And they understand what small businesses have to accomplish to grow their business so they become a big business. And that Insperities had that. They were a small business once, and now it's a $7 billion business with 4,000 employees, because they know what they're doing, and they're professional at their craft. And that's why, if you're a small business and you want help in growing your business, give Insperity a call, and they will send their representatives out there, and they'll start a dialogue that will create a winning formula for your Insperity. I mean, for your business.
Yeah.
And that's what they want, because if businesses succeed, that's what our communities need.
Yeah.
Businesses, paying taxes and growing our economy.
Great work there, Charlie. On the other side, get to a couple more of your questions and get to a little preview for the U.S. Open. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour, presented by Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Back after this.
This is the Charlie Epps Golf Hour on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Powered by Insperity.
Now from the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Will Doctor and the golf doctor himself, Charlie Epps.
All right, we'll talk about Oakmont for the U.S. Open next week in just a little bit. After all, I am sitting next to Charlie Epps, who coached Angel Cabrera to a U.S. Open victory at Oakmont in 2007. That was pretty good. Let's get to Rick. You've coached major winners and club players. Actually, I don't like this one. Let's hold on. We'll get back to that one. Let's take Hayden's first. Charlie, you always talk about rotation through the ball. How should an average golfer work on that without overcomplicating it?
Well, we have one teacher described the golf swing as swinging in a barrel.
Wow.
Pretend that you're in a barrel and that you got to make motion to make speed, to create speed, and it's centrifugal. And the left hip has to turn and the right hip's going to follow the left hip. And it's a circular motion around and around, and that is going to help you create club head speed and getting your body moving. If you can visualize a skater, ice skater, these beautiful ladies that create these jumps and they go through, around in the ice with just really effortless power. They're using centrifugal force. So you've got to get in your golf stance, put your hands in front of you, and identify, turn your right hip backwards. Say, all of a sudden, I'm sitting on a chair, Will, right? And
Yep.
now if I move my right hip, my left hip's going to follow.
Yeah.
Now I've got a position. Now I got to move the left hip back to where it was. And now the right hip is going to come around. And once you get it moving, you gain momentum. Then you really want to accelerate it. And you just got to talk to that right hip. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
That right knee. And you push off from that right foot.
Now you've taught me, given me a little tip that's really worked for this. And you say, Will, just imagine a coral snake's wrapped around your waist.
Yeah.
And you just turn around that without letting the snake bite you.
That's it. Yeah. And that snake's going to bite you if you stop turning.
That's right. That's a good one, Charlie. Now, do you feel that with that, just to paint a picture for the audience, do you feel like your hips, your body is working like a spindle and working around?
Yeah.
Is that another good way to put it?
Well, sure. I mean, it's like a wheel on a car. The wheel is turning around the axle. The axle is making the wheel turn, and your accelerator, you press down on the accelerator, and that wheel's going to turn even quicker. So I would recommend everybody go to a track meet this spring and summer and watch these athletes perform, great things, whether it's a long jump, it's the discus, the shot put, that's all centrifugal force. And you see their bodies work, and that's what you got to make in golf. Get your body working so that the club can move.
Yeah. You do it better than anyone at 80 years old, Charlie.
80.
I mean, the way that you can still clear those hips at 80 years old in the golf swing is it's unbelievable. It really is. Let's get to Ricardo. Ricardo says short game, it gets overlooked in my preparation. What are the fundamentals you believe every golfer should master inside 50 yards?
Oh, that's an easy question. And you can throw a golf ball 50 yards, but you need help. It's the hands, wrist, and arm motion, the wrist and the elbow, and the wrist cocking and uncocking. It creates speed. So just go outside and warm up throwing golf balls. Get that arm going, and then the body will follow the arm. It's that kind of stuff. And you notice when you put a golf ball in your hands, in your fingers, there's no tension. You can't grab onto the ball because then you can't release it. You just hold it like a surgeon and throw it and get the fingers going, get the forearm going, get the elbow working. Those are all parts and parcels of a good golf swing.
Yeah.
Train your hands, wrists, and arms to swing the club. That was a good saying by Jim Flick. That's when I went to work with him. You know, and we went to so many great places. But Jim was a hands, wrists, and arms guy. I mean, that it's you know, the club is, you know, you put it on the ground, it can't move.
Yeah.
You got to put it in your hands, and you got to move your hands to move the club.
Great work, Charlie. Let's take one more. This is Tim. If a golfer only has 30 minutes a week to practice, what do you suggest they should work on?
I would want to say, you know, take up tennis.
Yeah.
No, you got to have time, but a half hour, you can sit in. You know, I'm sitting in a rolling chair that has a swivel on it. Sit down in a chair like that and turn. You know, I should take a picture of this. You know, you see that? See the rotation?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You're sitting in
Okay.
just a normal.
But it's all starting with the feet.
Yeah.
See, if I don't move my feet back, my knees won't go back.
Correct.
See, now I'm on the right side. I'm going to go to the left side, and I get the feeling of the rotation, and I'm moving without effort.
And world number one, Scotty Scheffler, doing this incredibly well, isn't he, Charlie?
Oh my gosh, it's I can't wait to see him play the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
If he wins the U.S. Open this year, and he probably should, it's going to be magnificent. You know, because see, nobody's talked about how tall is Scotty Scheffler.
About 6'4".
See,
Yeah.
that's the first big man to win this much.
Yeah.
You know, and his coordination is so well because he was trained as a young person by Randy Smith since he's 7 years old. You know, and just like my grandson, he learned how to play catch. He learned how to use his motor skills at a different sport. So play catch with your son. Get their hands, wrists, and arms working, you know, in a fashion that moves the ball, and they can all of a sudden throw it 70 feet, 80 feet, 90 feet.
And he was a great basketball player, Scotty.
Yeah, Scotty, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
learned how to use his legs on the court.
The USGA or some outfit made a study which athletes would make the best golfers, and they said the basketball.
Wow.
Because of their coordination.
No, I believe it.
Seth Curry.
Yeah. He can play.
Is he going to retire?
AJ, how many years does Steph have left?
I feel like he still has like a good 3 to 5 years left. He's still playing high
good
level.
3 to 5 years and plays high level. And obviously one of the best basketball players of all time. This guy
best athletes ever.
He can play golf.
You know,
and he plays in some of these Korn Ferry Tour Pro-Ams and the PGA Tour Pro-Ams. Has his own junior.
He loves golf.
Has his own junior golf tour with Under Armour. Does a lot of great things for the game, despite not playing it professionally.
Yeah. Good man.
You know, I heard a audio clip from Scotty Scheffler, world number one this week, and it was after his win at Jack's Place last week, which you know was just incredible. Another 4-shot victory where he just ran away from the field. But he talked about staying in the moment. Was asked about staying in the moment. Here was world number one on that.
Scotty, you've talked a lot about the importance of staying in the present, which can be hard for a lot of people. But where does that importance for you, the focus on that, come from? And is there anyone or anything throughout your life that has helped you get better at staying in the present?
Well, yeah, my college coach, Coach Fields, was kind of the first person that introduced that concept to me. You know, I was when I first got to college, I was trying to date this girl whose name was Meredith, and you know, I would come out to the course, and if she, you know, shot me a text or gave me a phone call, I'd pick it up, and you know, I was still trying to woo her at that point. And, you know, I'd get a little distracted when it came to practicing. And, you know, coach sat me down one day and said, hey, listen, when you're at the golf course, you need to be focused on what you're doing at the golf course. He's like, when you're in class, you need to be paying attention in class. And he's like, when you get to do your social stuff, you need to be present where you are. And it's just, I think it's a better way to try to enjoy life. I mean, if I can be present where I am, like if I'm at home thinking about golf, am I going to be fully enjoying the time I get to spend with Meredith and Bennett? Probably not. And if I'm at the golf course, thinking about being at home, I'm probably not going to be focused in my practice. I'm not going to get the most out of it. And so I think it's a daily battle to try and focus on the task at hand. And, I think it's a bit of a, kind of, living life to the fullest type of thing. I think when you're thinking about what you're doing, I think that's when you're living.
That was incredible stuff. He's my pick for Oakmont at the U.S. Open. But and Charlie,
Yeah.
you know Coach Fields very well.
Yes.
I mean, talk about the kind of not your run of the mill college golf coach.
No, he and his beautiful wife, they understand, what their role in life is, and their coaching ability on and off the golf course is magnificent. But one point I want to make is why it's fresh in our mind. How great was Jack Nicklaus on the microphone last week at his tournament?
The best. We heard a ton of clips from him last week. He's still traveling. He went to the Masters. He was at the Valero Texas Open trying to grow the game in Texas. And yeah, his words last week were amazing.
Amazing. And listen to those, go back over and listen to what he says. And it's just so basic and so fundamental that it's not complicated. He reduced golf to a very simple game.
Yeah, he does. And actually, one thing that we did not hear last week that he said on Sunday, if you want to hear, all of Jack's statements from last week, you can go listen to our show from last week. We talked a lot about it. But one thing he said on Sunday was, there was a lot of good players on top of that leaderboard at Muirfield last week. Ben Griffin, good player. A couple of these other guys, very impressive players. Jack said there's no one close to Scotty in the game right now.
There isn't. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he won $10 million in 6 weeks because he was always in the top three. How many tournaments has he won? It's so refreshing to see. And if we all pay attention, make it simple, stupid.
There you go. Charlie, great work today. AJ behind the ones and twos. Thank you for your great work as well. We'll talk next week at the midway point of the U.S. Open. This is the Charlie Epps Golf Opera to my Insperity HR that makes a difference.